Check 1 2 1 2. Shout out! Ah! Glorious day out in the wilderness. We had a ton of snow here in beautiful BC, beautiful British Columbia, all through the night. So a lot of people digging themselves out today. But if you're out in the forest, it's just gorgeous. All these snow-covered trees and fresh snow. First one out here, forging a trail. I did have a few footsteps to follow, so that's good. It's always good if you got a few footsteps you can follow in life, you know? So you know you're on the right path. You don't get lost in the wilderness. So I wanted to say, hey, I guess for my own selfish reasons, I just wanted to share I had a spectacular day the other day. And not that there was anything totally crazy or awesome about it that, you know, you could make a YouTube video and show off to a million people. It was a very simple day. But for whatever reason, I mean, I got to see one of my best friends in the world who I love dearly. And we got to go out to a place that was, for the first time, a brand new place for me. A newly discovered place. So how cool is that? I can live in a place like this all my life, and there's still these gorgeous places I've never been. And I was brought there. I was brought to one of those places yesterday. So it's now on my list as a new fave, a new place to go. But how awesome that is to discover something new, you know? And if you can do that each day, I tell you, you're on to something. But yeah, I ended up having just an awesome day. I mean, it was so simple. It was beautiful. I was out in the sunshine. I was out in the forest. I was out in nature. And then we went into the city. And we were among all the people and did some shopping. And there's always cool things that happen. And then my day continued on, and I ended up running into some other people I hadn't expected to see or hadn't seen in a long time. And it was just so good. It was so good. Strangers and friends alike, having conversations. One was actually really cute. It was a Punjabi couple. A Punjabi girl I know really well now after the last, 3 or 4 years. She's this gorgeous, gorgeous girl. I love her. And we know each other just in a very casual basis, but at the same time, we're both friends. We're cool. So her boyfriend was making fun of me because I was wearing this silly hat I got at Value Village. It's like a toque, but it was like a hockey champions toque, and it was red and white, and it looked like it had like a Christmas pattern, a little pom-pom. And so they were laughing at me. They're like, "Oh, you're ready for Santa? You're all ready for Santa?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, I don't even know if I like Santa. And they're like, "Oh, yeah. There's Santa at the mall. Go see Santa. Get your Christmas, right?" And they're making fun of me for celebrating Christmas. And I was like, you know what, guys? It's only recently, like, I've been blind to all this, that I started asking, like, what the heck? You know, like, why do parents put their little kids on this stranger's lap to ask for toys or whatever their wish lists are? And why do we celebrate this date, December 25th? And you know, the part of me would say, well, it's supposed to be when Jesus was born. But now in the last couple of years, having finally put the time and effort in and having the spirituality that you need, I'm like, yeah, you know what? This isn't exactly true, is it? And so you got the 25th, unfortunately, pegged as the date that Jesus Christ was born. But if you ask historians and you really think about it, Jesus was born in Bethlehem to Joseph and Mary, Son of God, in a manger because they couldn't find an inn. And it was because Augustus, Caesar Augustus at the time, he'd called a census. So again, God had one of his main men, right? Like Caesar Augustus is like the pinnacle of Rome. And I've talked to you guys about this before, all these Caesars. He's the one. They made him a deity. They turned him into a god. And he did run a pretty tight ship. And, you know, for a lot of reasons, he wasn't the worst guy. He was actually a decent guy and a great leader, and you got to give him that. He wasn't crazy like a lot of the other Caesars, emperors, Caesars, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, he called a census, and there's something funny about that because King David, years ago, he too, in his pride, had a census done to find out how many warriors, soldiers, were in all of Israel. And he was punished by God for that because that was his own ego. That was him thinking that he needed to know how many men he had in his army, forgetting that all his victories came through God. So he was punished for that. And he knew he repented that. But this is again now, years and years later, Caesar Augustus calling a census. And it's through God this happens, because it was the first that they did. And it meant everybody in the kingdom of Rome had to go back to their hometowns. And that's where they would get counted for this census. And it was for paying tax and for them to know how many people were in their kingdom. And so it caused Joseph and Mary to go back to Bethlehem, where they were from. And Mary's actually from the line of David. So because all the ancient scriptures said the king of Israel would be born in Bethlehem, Jesus had to be born in Bethlehem. And of course he was, because it's all God's plan. And it was just really cool to think it was because of this Caesar Augustus that they ended up going there. And that's where Jesus ended up being born. But when he was born, the shepherds were in the field, and the angels from heaven lit up the sky, and they sang and rejoiced that the king was born, the Son of God was here. And these shepherds who were out in the field saw this, and they were told to go find him in this manger in this town in Bethlehem. And they went and found him, much like those wise men from the east saw the scepter in the sky, a new star. They all used to follow astrology. They all knew the stars. The stars were direction. They were time. They told people so much. So these wise men always followed the sky. And when they saw that new star in the sky, they went back to the ancient wisdom, and they found this, a scepter shall arise from the east, that these guys were to follow, that was going to be the Messiah. And they believed it. They weren't even Israelites. They weren't even Jewish people. Israelites. And I said that in the last video. When I say Jewish, that's people from the kingdom of Judah. It's Israelites. And I don't want to mix that up with the Jewish people of today. Anyway, that was all playing into it. But if you think about it, shepherds would be out in the fields in late summer. So more like fall would have been the time. They don't have, shepherds don't take their livestock out in the winter. They put them in their stalls in the barns, and they feed them, and they keep them warm. So even in Israel, even in the Middle East, they don't go out in the winter. So you know what? I think Jesus was born in September. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, because I was born in September. I think he really was. But the thing is, it's never been a thing. Like, there was never a time where Jesus said you had to celebrate his birth or his birth date. And as much as I think anyone that loves Jesus would want to, it was never something scriptural that they said, like to have this celebration. Although there's a feast, and it's like one of the holiest times, and it's at the end of September. So if you're asking me, I think that's when it is. But we've been told now since 300 AD or something, that this is the date of Jesus' birth. And so from then on, we've had this 25th of December as his birth date. But for a lot of the pagan people, they know it's nothing to do with that. They don't believe in Jesus. And they actually worship the sun, and this is the solstice, and this is all about like Saturnalia from Rome, and the sun gods, and Mithra, and all these things. And that's what my toque looked like. When I saw this couple, I had like a Mithra toque. It's like Mithra, the goddess from Rome, right? So they were making fun of me. And I was like, I'm like, I don't even know, okay? I'm just figuring all this out. And I said, okay, well, what about you guys? You guys don't celebrate Christmas, obviously. And they're like, no, Christmas, how silly. You got some old guy in a beard, brings you presents, and all the kids, and everyone gets drunk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because they're Muslim, right? And so I said, well, what about you then? Like, India's got to be one of the only places where they don't have Christmas. And they're like, yeah, I guess. They said, we do have some of our major cities, and especially now, but even then, that would put up Christmas lights. And they did it more of like more for like a business reason, right? It was like a time when you could get those few atheist or pagan people who lived in the country who wanted to buy a Christmas present, the westernized Indians of the time. And so they did have some show of that in like Mumbai and some of the bigger cities. But were the villages where they were from? Not at all. Not at all. And so they were telling me, I said, well, what do you guys have? And they said, well, ours is end of November, early December. We have a celebration, and it's for their god of Ra. Again, it's kind of like going back to Egypt. But it was a god they had from way back who, I guess, was like disappeared or in exile and came back after like 45 years and ended up freeing all the people and saving all these different kings. And it's a bit of a complicated story, and they didn't quite know it, and they were just telling me what they knew. But she even thought it was still silly. Even that, really, like that celebration, she was like, oh, they do all these silly things. And so they don't believe any of that. But they were laughing at me thinking I was a typical Westerner who was celebrating Christmas and Santa Claus and And my toque gave me away. And I'm like, oh man, not at all. But to hear from them too, like they think their most important holiday is Dhaliwal, and it's this like color parade, and they couldn't even give me too much on that. But they said, oh, we've got so many gods in India. Like obviously the Hindus and Buddhists and Sikhs, and it's all of these different religions, right? And a lot of them have a plethora of gods for all these different reasons. So they didn't really want to get into it, but they were laughing at me because they thought I was this typical guy. Anyway, it was all part of this beautiful day. And so by the end of it, I'd sat down and I'd kind of reflected on it. And I felt so good. And I said, you know what? If I was to die today, I'm content. I could die content today. Lord can take me today and I will be happy. And I thought, geez, man, what power in that? That in just a single day, in one day, you could have so much love and so much fulfillment from that day that you could rest easy knowing that even if you were to die, you'd be happy. You would die content. And there's so much power in that, people. It's like we get this gift each day and we can choose how we want to enjoy it, to embrace it. And we all have our own situations. There's always going to be, conflicts and circumstances that cause you to feel like you're in need of something, or someone's done something to hurt you, or whatever your problem is at work, or who knows what goes on in this world. You could have all these things that you could spend your day focused on that could really tear you up and could take away from that beauty of just having the miracle of this day, the miracle of being alive. And if you have the mind frame or the heart set or whatever it is to see each day as a gift like that, then there's so much power in that. Because it's like, I'm just happy to be alive. I'm just happy I'm here, and just to see all these small things you can be grateful for, even in the bigger picture, even when it seems like the world's coming to an end and there's all this confusion and fear. In that simple day, you can still in yourself have so much love and so much contentment and gratitude that it's like, I could die happy. So I wish and I hope that each one of you has one of those days, if not every day. Try and have those days more often, because the power in that, the fear of death turns into a little mouse. You don't scare me, Dad. I'm ready. I have nothing more I need to do, nothing more I need to say, although I always have more to say. But to be content and know I didn't miss out on anything. There wasn't something I was ever in need of. No horrible, bad things really ever happened to me. A lot of things happened to me, but nothing that's taken away my spirit, taken away my soul, my love. So hold on to those things that you love and cherish. And this time of year and any time of year, just be grateful. Be grateful. And when you're living in a beautiful place like this, in the world that I'm in, we get these 4 seasons and clean, crisp air. And whether you're a believer in Jesus or a believer in Santa, or whoever you're believing in, it's all good. Just be full of joy. Just have that contentment and that gratitude for being alive. And I think you'll inspire others out there in their day and help them to maybe brighten up and see it for what it is. So, yeah, I've had some really awesome days lately. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling happy. And I just wanted to share that with you all and let you know that thinking about each and every one of you. I hope everybody's doing well, health-wise, in all those ways. And yeah, that's it. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah.